What if we stopped hiding our real nuance and our real way of doing things? What if we stopped editing ourselves cognitively and emotionally in order to fit into culture and systems that are most likely already outdated anyway? Identity as a leadership strategy. Hi, friends. It's Diane here at Someone Gets Me. And today I'm talking about leadership as a neurodivergent person. And it's a strategy. Our identity as a leader is a strategy. Now, I'm not talking about the typical parlance or words we would use in the HR world or in the neurotypical kind of generic word of leadership. I've really been thinking about how our identity is our own strategy, that a neurodivergent person has an identity that is dissimilar from the neurotypical by definition, right? So, what if we used that identity as part of our leadership strategy instead of masking it and pretending like we're not different by design, that things aren't the way they are? What if we stopped hiding our real nuance and our real way of doing things? What if we stopped editing ourselves cognitively and emotionally in order to fit into culture and systems that are most likely already outdated anyway? And just maybe we are in the leadership positions we are, whether it's a formal title or not, in order to bring more life, more excitement, and a lot more growth into situations and into our world. What if your identity is meant to be a leadership strategy instead of just something that you are on the side? So I have some thoughts about this, and I've actually written some of them down because I have so many, right? So the first thing I want to say is that if your leadership style feels safe in the sense of not provoking thoughts and ideas and actions, then you already have lost your influence. So I'm talking about a safety different than psychological safety, which we will get to here shortly. But if you feel safe, like you're within confines, kind of like safe, then most likely you're masking or hiding or editing some of who you are. And that is doing everyone a disservice. It also means that you lose your influence. Because as a neurodivergent person, we bring to the table, we bring to the presence of the world something that's different. And it's designed that way. We are designed that way in our identity. So by sanitizing yourself, by pretending you're something you're not, by acting kind of, I kind of imagine it like milk toast, right? Kind of bland and plain and just kind of going along, then you're going outside of what your brain is built for, and you're stuck in a system that is eventually going to fry you, burn you out, make you feel bad, because you're mismatching. You're bringing a neurodivergent wealth of greatness and ideas and systemic thinking and pattern recognition and intensity and emotion, and you're trying to distill it down to something that's very simple and typical. And those don't go together for long. And so sooner or later, your amazing neurodivergent self is going to have to try to show up. And if you try to show up in a system that you've previously been sanitizing yourself and masking, it's going to make life very challenging and lead to burnout often. So I want to encourage you as a leader, as a neurodivergent person. And here's how you know you're a leader. You know you're a leader if people come to you for advice or ideas. It doesn't have to come with a title. In fact, I help people all the time that are leaders that don't necessarily have the title because people go to them, right? It's happened to me in other situations I've been in where I was not the leader of the group corporately, but yet everyone came to me, including the named corporate leaders, because I had the neurodivergent leadership skills. Now, those words weren't really available to us back then, but that's what it was when you look back at it. So we want to make sure that we're using all parts of us in our leadership, whether it's professional or personal or formal or informal, right? And so what parts of you Have you been kind of hiding or tucking away just to try to make it in the system that you're in? And that difference is trying to come out, right? So what parts of you have you done that with? What parts of you are you hiding or kind of, I call it tucking away? What are you doing? How are you only let like 5% of yourself up? Or you're trying to be typical when you're not? Because that's a recipe for burnout and upset and discord and all kinds of issues and physical health problems too. We don't want to have those. We want to let your real gift show up. And so if you're in a system that's not built for and not friendly for neurodivergence and different kinds of thinking strategies and leadership styles, then you want to evaluate that. And hopefully the system you're in will start to grow as you grow and you start to say, something, I'm going to be me. I'm going to let me show up. And that doesn't mean it's with anger. It doesn't mean it's in people's face, but it means that it's time to stop hiding. It's time to stop playing small. It's time to stop sitting in the cheap seats. It's time to be the leader. Because you are meant to lead, whether it's leading your own life, leading your family, leading a group. We are meant to lead. We are meant to stand in our authority of who we are and do what is right. So, have you been tucking any parts of yourself away? Have you been hiding any parts of yourself? Like, be honest. Be honest, because that's the first step in being able to change. Is say, oh, wait a second, I've been hiding something. I always ask myself, what am I tolerating? Because sometimes I can tell I'm hiding a part of me because I'm tolerating something about me or about the situation that it's not necessarily bad, but it doesn't work. It kind of rubs me funny. And so there's a big cost to this. There's a big cost when you edit yourself and you hide parts of you and you mask parts of you and you deny parts of you. There's a big cost. And for me, the number one big cost is burnout. Yeah, we get burned out. We can go about 2 years or so, and then pretty soon we're burned out. We're tired. We're weary. Our insides don't know what to do. We don't feel good, all of those things. And so it's so important that we realize that we don't want to burn out. So we want to make sure that we're letting ourselves show up. Another thing that happens, I think, that is an equal cost that I don't think we should be paying too much more of, and that is a blurred identity. Like, people don't think that we have much going on if we're hiding it all, right? And then when we start showing it, they get all surprised. I remember years and years and years and years ago, I don't want to admit how many years because I'll feel old, but years ago, I decided to stop hiding parts of my creativity and my thinking style. And I had several people in my world go, well, you've been lying to us all along, and they got really upset. And I said, well, actually, I haven't been lying. I've been living the best I could. I didn't know. And I had a lot of naivete about that. And there was a lot of ups and downs. And eventually all the relationships all flowed and all took care of themselves. And at the same time, I realized there was a big consequence to me masking parts of me to fit in. And then when I decided I was best served being me authentically, that caused an issue for the people in my life at the time. And so we all had to kind of grow through that together. And since then, I've had that happen with me where I've been friends with people and then they come into who they are more and more. And we've all had to adjust. But the good news is humans are adjustable and we're resilient. And I think on some level, all of us who have some neurodivergence, we can tend to mask a little bit. We can tend to hide. We can tend to tuck parts of ourselves away. We don't want to be too much or too sensitive. Or sometimes you share an idea and people look at you like, where did that come from? And they're all make fun of you maybe or something. And so you shrink down. Well, what I want to tell you is that your identity is in your leadership strategy. And so you want to, instead of shutting down, you want to open up in a safe way for you and for others. Now, we also want to realize that there's another cost. The other cost I want to talk about is the whole idea, I think it's a myth, that as executives, there's a certain style and you have to be a certain way and mask all your feelings and do everything in a way that's very typical. My father was one of those kinds of executives, and he had a completely different demeanor in his work than he did any other part of his life, completely different. And because he was playing the role of the executive. And I remember at one point him telling me, say whatever you want to people so that you can do whatever you want and still do whatever you want. Just give them the answers they want to hear and then do what you want to. And I remember questioning that, thinking, well, that doesn't sound very authentic or honest. And I was being taught that that's how you are in the typical leadership role. Thankfully, I didn't learn that, because I think our leadership is a strategy, and our neurodivergent way of doing things that has gumption, and oomph, and spice and excitement to it brings a whole lot to the table. And that's why sometimes, even not as the leader that is named on the plate on the door or the corner office, sometimes you're the leader on the fringe. You're the leader on the outside, helping people see who they really are and contributing in a way that really matters. I also want to talk a little bit about that there's a lot of opportunities that get lost. When we hide who we are and we mask ourselves or we tuck ourselves away, then we lose opportunity for innovation. We lose that opportunity because we're too busy hiding behind this facade or this idea that we think is who we're supposed to be. But if our leadership is a strategy and we're going to stop editing ourselves, then we're going to begin to realize that there's been a lot of opportunity lost, a lot of innovation lost along the way when we were editing and hiding and tucking ourselves away. So I want to encourage you to bring yourself to the table in a healthy, responsible way. So sometimes people go, oh, I can come out and be all my quirky neurodivergent self. Well, that's true. And you also have to pay attention to the audience, right? You have to pay attention to how are you going to be received and how are you going to receive yourself. So there's more than one person. There's more than one player here. And when you're hiding yourself, you're cheating everybody. Everybody loses when you hide yourself. So when you hide that brilliance, when you kind of distort it, when you twist it away, then everyone loses. The whole team, including you, lose. Now, maybe that team is your family and you're holding them back. Or maybe that team is you, yourself, and you, right? You used to say that all the time, me, myself, and I'm the team. Or maybe it is a work situation or a volunteer situation. It doesn't really matter, but the situation. But what it does matter is that when you hide yourself, you're cheating yourself and everyone else. And if you look in your soul and you ask yourself, is it okay for me to be cheating everyone around me by playing small? The answer is probably no, it's not okay. Now, sometimes we have to bring our light and bring our neurodivergence and our differences into situations in ways that the other people can assimilate. So sometimes we have to pick the strategy. We have to understand how we're going to bring our uniqueness to the table in a way it can be heard and felt and acted upon. But it doesn't mean that you mask it or hide it. It means that you become an artist, you become creative in the delivery method, in how it works, how you work as a leader in whatever the situation is to bring forward your amazing gifts rather than hiding them, because your identity is a strategic differentiator. It's strategic in the sense that you're different by design. So all the gifts you have, that pattern recognition, that empathy, that intuition, that visionary skill, that ability to take precise action and pay attention to authenticity and correctness, all of these things, those are your differentiators. Those are your identity markers that make you, you. When you hide them or keep them just for yourself, you cheat everybody. So I want to encourage you to bring your identity to the table, out into the world in an ethical, moral way, allowing yourself to be vulnerable in that way. Now, vulnerability and authenticity give you a creative edge, because people may not always understand you right away, or they might look at you a little funny, but they learn to respect you when you have clear and healthy boundaries and you stand in your authenticity and your authority of who you are. When you do that and your identity is that strategic part of you, then people begin to respect you even more. And then you build your own higher self-respect and confidence. Because see, here's the thing. No, none of us, none of us were designed to conform. In fact, it's funny because a lot of people over my life think I'm the conformist person, and I'm really not. I really do things kind of outside the box, and I usually do things that don't necessarily go with the setting. In fact, I had an assistant one time years ago, and he goes, "You know what, Diane?" I go, "What?" He goes, "You know how people say that they push the envelope?" I go, "Yes." He goes, "You don't even have an envelope." Because I really believe in bringing all of me to the table. And the whole lessons have been, how do I do that in a way that's meaningful, that's honorable, that's respectful to myself and others? And how do I navigate this often insensitive world as an intensely sensitive, neurodivergent woman? Like, how do I do that? And so that's where the transformation and the fun of my leadership has come from, seeing how I can use that vulnerability and these different parts of me as a competitive edge, because I know I can see things others can't see. And I know I have ability that others don't have. And I also know that others have ability that I don't have. And so my mom's voice just rang in my head. And she used to always say, "You don't have to know everything, honey. You just have to know how to find the people who do know the things." And so I remember that. And I like to surround myself with people who have ideas and do things differently than I. And then I share my gifts, they share their gifts. And as leaders, we come together with a mighty strategy. We don't have to edit ourselves. One of the things I was thinking about too, and I had to write notes about this a little bit because I started thinking about it, and then I'm like, well, let me see. I can see the framework now. I had to see the picture first so I could write it down. Because I think what happens is neurodivergent people often, and I know I've been guilty of this, we kind of like redesign ourselves. We find a way to kind of tweak and change ourselves a little bit so we can kind of morph into a situation. So rather than being all of who we are in an authentic way where we're standing in our authority and we're bringing ourselves to the table in a beautiful, meaningful way, we often might tend to kind of morph or compromise a little bit, or we try to find a way to fit in while still retaining our identity, which is noble in the beginning, but it doesn't work for very long. And so when we live in a framework where we can do that, where things are delineated down into something very small and easy, that sometimes we lose some of our gifts, right? We lose the ability to bring them to the table. So I have a new kind of framework that I kind of came up with, and I call it the no compromise architecture. And that is that I'm not going to allow myself to cheapen or dial down the value that I or any other person brings to the situation. And so the first part of my little message is a triad, like a three-legged stool, is to pay attention to who the other people are on the team along with myself, because there's always people on the team, whether they're in the room or whether if it's in a company or in my family or friend group or whatever, there's always other people involved. And so we want to work with people based on a cognitive complement, not necessarily checking off an Excel spreadsheet or a line item checkbox. So who in your world, who on your teams and all the different ones is a cognitive and intellectual and emotional complement to you? They have emotional intelligence, they have cognitive intelligence, maybe they have knowledge bases and ways of thinking that may not be the same as yours, but they complement you. That's the first thing, is surround yourself with people who complement you. Most of the people in my world are really good at some of the things that I can do, but I'm not great at. And then I'm really good at some of the things that they can do, but aren't great at. So together, we put it all together. The second thing we want to do is we want to pay attention as leaders to how we message our mission, how we message what we're doing. We want to be practical, and we want to have language that reflects the way we do the world. That our language needs to reflect our metaphors, our story, the way we're doing things. Like, it reflects our tempo, right? It reflects how our rhythm goes. Because most neurodivergent people have a different kind of rhythm. I worked for a doctor one time, and all of his doctor hours for his patients were in the evening. And I was his assistant, so I was there with him. And he used to look at me and goes, people work 9 to 5. That's a different kind of person than me. I like to work in the evening. And that was true. He did. And so he made his office hours based on when he wanted to work. And a lot of people were grateful because they could come after their work to see him. So it all worked out. But he crafted the message that allowed him to create the map of his world for his life and his practice. So what about you? What messaging would you have for the teams that are complementing with you to bring your leadership to the table without compromise, which means without cheapening yourself, right? And the last part of my little three-legged stool is to have really good systems. Now, this is the place that I, as a visionary, really need those cognitive complements because I know I need systems. I love systems. I'm great at following systems. But when it comes to creating a system, if it's just from scratch from the beginning, I struggle with that. And if somebody who's good at systems says, well, what about this idea or that idea? And that it's a complementary fashion to what I'm doing, I can excel. And then they can excel because I have a lot of the visionary things. So it matters that you have a good system, and it matters that the complement of the people involved all support whatever the system is, because we want to have the ability to have honor and respect and attention in a way that matters within the system. The other thing that matters that we pay attention to in the system is our sensory needs and our energy flow. Like so many places, they have good systems, but they don't account for maybe how the lighting should be in the room or the noise level, right? Or they don't account for the fact that people's hours might be a little weird, and so they need to sleep at different times. They don't account for the sensory needs of all of us sometimes. And sometimes people don't count for the energy cycles. I have a client right now who goes, but I don't have my creative time first thing in the morning like you do, Diane. I have it later. I said, well, you honor your own cycle. Because my creative time's first thing in the morning doesn't mean that's the only time people are creative. It means that's when I'm creative. So when are you creative? When are you your best? When would you best not be taking a test or doing something that doesn't work for you? What is that going to be? It's really quite fascinating when we slow down enough to pay attention to our own rhythm. Most people's rhythm don't follow the neurotypical workday. They don't. They fit into it because we have to, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's how you have to do it. So you want to look at that. How is that going to work for you? Because there's practical ways that we can remove some of the obstacles. And one of them is to start talking about it and educating people. I was with some friends just the other night walking our dogs, and I had a startle response to something because one of the dogs kind of stepped on my foot and it startled me and went, ah, like that. And everybody's like, what? And they all kind of got all upset, and not upset at me. They just thought something was wrong. I said, no, I just have a strong startle response because I'm neurodivergent. It's okay. No problem. I'm good. And they looked at me funny. And I said, well, because sometimes if somebody isn't educating along the way, other people don't know. And no, I wasn't overreacting for me. It's because I have a sensitivity and a sensory thing. So sometimes it just starts with educating people along the way of how we operate, because each one of us is different and every one of us has a different way of operating. And as long as we're in alignment, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and socially, as long as we're in alignment, we're on track. And all of us can be in alignment and still doing it a little differently. That's the complement part. We want to have people in our world that complement us. It really helps. So when you build your life around how your own brain works, how your own body works, when you build your life around that, then everything starts coming together. The gel starts working because you're doing your optimum work at your optimum energy times. You're paying attention to your sensory needs, that you're eating the right food, that the lighting works for you, right? That you're wearing clothing that is comfortable, those things, that you're making sure that there's no sound around that's really distracting, that you're paying attention to how your own brain works. And then you are beginning to move and make your environment and your leadership style that strategy that brings you to the forefront without having to edit yourself, without having to shrink. And so the more you honor those parts of you, then the healthier you become and the more transformed you become and the better leader you become. But also people will respect you more, because when you're masking, people know you are, even if they don't know that's what it is. They can tell there's something else going on. We can feel it even if we're not aware of it, of what it is, right? So what are we doing to be more authentic and be more alive, and using our difference as a platform, as a way to bring something beautiful to the world? How can we do that? And so this whole way of operating and making sure that we're finding people that complement ourselves and that we set really clear boundaries pays off. So the way I think about it is that if I share my vision and I ask other people in my world to share their vision for whatever it is, whether it's a project or life or a goal, if we all are sharing our vision and we're telling the truth, right? And we're present with each other, which means we're breathing and we're attentive, we're listening with our ears and our hearts, we're doing all that stuff. Then when we do that, then that connection becomes very valuable. And in that valuable connection, our neurodivergence, our pattern recognition, our ability to think through things, our strategic minds, our keen senses, all can come together for something really amazing. And it's in that our identity and our leadership take a leap into something much more beautiful than playing typical. Now, there's always boundaries that are important. And one of them for me is psychological safety, that it really matters that everybody on the team is psychologically safe to say what they think without the fear of being ridiculed or harmed or bullied. It means that the person leading the team is responsible for that integrity of the team, and that there's collaboration, meaning we can have divergent views and ideas, and we still listen to each other with the same love and respect we would want to be listened to. And that we allow ourselves to hold ideas that are different from ours and still come back to what we say we believe, and be able to do those kinds of things and be willing to shift some of our understanding as we get new ideas. And so I want to invite you to bring your best work to the table. I want to invite you to live by your own unique rhythm. I want to invite you to focus your heart, your mind, your soul on that energy that's trying to emerge, that gift that's in you. So it's not about asking the world for permission for you to show up. It's about you creating your own map, your own blueprint, your own way, and allowing other people to see the beauty of that map and choose to engage with it, whether to come on their same road with you or whatever they're going to do. But it's up to us, those of us who are different by design, to say, you know what? I'm no longer going to live in a trance, a sleepwalking trance that isn't me. In a respectful, calm, focused way, I choose to bring all of who I am forward. I choose to bring me out into the world in a way that is meaningful and sovereign and authentic and safe. And in that, the leadership that I have from this identity is not safe at all. That's the paradox. Because if you bring all of you to the table, then that safety comfort zone goes away. And all of us are challenged then to move forward, to up level, to grow into something more amazing, more beautiful than we ever imagined for ourselves. We stop playing small when we get rid of that idea of conformity and we start to bring our actual gift to the table. So the paradox is we're psychologically safe. We're safe on all levels of our sharing, which then makes our leadership style not so safe for those people who want to live in the status quo. And that, my friends, is one of the big gifts that you have as a neurodivergent leader, positively. So remember one thing, that your dialogue, your language, the way you talk, who you are, the way you think, it is a beautiful difference. It's the furthest thing in the world from being a liability like people want us to think. We're only look like a liability to those people who are holding on with a death grip to old news. You, my friend, are here to bring in new, vibrant life to the world. And I want to encourage you to do that. And so I hope all of this has helped you. Make sure you have people who complement your own cognitive and your emotional intelligence ability. Make sure that you allow yourself to bring all of you to the table. I'm getting goosebumps now. Make sure you're allowed to bring all of yourself to the table. And remember that neurodivergent leaders, it's our identity that is our strategy. We don't have to hide anymore. I hope to see you at our Neurodivergent Transformation Retreat in October. And I hope to see you somewhere online or in person in any place that we could be. As always, you can feel free to make a comment to this video, email me or contact me, do a free get to know you call, whatever it takes to keep the conversation going. Allow yourself to bring all of who you are as a leader, as a neurodivergent, amazing person with all kinds of nuance and brilliance. Bring all of it to the table in a loving, kind, focused way. Until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, remember to keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there and let your light shine. Let that vision show up and be your amazing leader that you are.